I want to cancel the engagement, Zhao Liangxing declared, standing in the middle of his office. Her words were sharp and final, but he didn't even look up. His pen only paused for a second. The reason, I've fallen in love with someone else. The atmosphere went dead silent. He is the CEO of the Ren Group. She is the heiress of the Zhao Group. A marriage between their families was a foregone conclusion. An expected part of their high society circle. Yet she chose the moment he finished, signing a major agreement to announce she had fallen for another. Hu Yu Yeguang, he finished his signature, closing the folder before she could say more. The engagement is cancelled. You can go explain it to both our fathers. Her face turned pale. Ren Yang, do you really not care at all? He finally looked at her. You've made your choice. She stared at him, her voice trembling. I'm going to register my marriage today. Congratulations. She turned and walked to the door, then glanced back. You won't retaliate, will you? He chuckled softly. Capital never retaliates. I'm simply withdrawing my investment. 3 days later, that same night, he convened the board of directors. All capital from their 3 core investments in the Zhao family was completely pulled. Banks immediately began tightening their credit. For the first time, she called him. Are you crazy? It's a business decision, he replied. She was silent for a long time. What exactly do you want? He just looked out at the city through the glass. I'm just withdrawing. She didn't know what he was withdrawing was so much more than an engagement. Zhao Liangxing had walked in wearing 18-centimeter stiletto heels. At the time, he was reviewing an acquisition agreement. She didn't knock. The sound of her heels striking the floor was crisp and sharp, each click a deliberate announcement of her arrival. His secretary was powerless to stop her. Since they were kids, she never needed an appointment to enter his office. He is Ren Yang, the current CEO of the Ren Group and the only son of the Ren family. She is the heiress of the Zhao Group, the only daughter of the Zhao family. Their families had worked together for over 20 years. They basically grew up together. Back at the table, he finished signing the last page and set his fountain pen down. The moment he retracted the pen, he looked up. She stood before his desk, posture perfectly straight, her makeup immaculate. Her red lips were pressed into a line, waiting for him to speak first, but he said nothing, simply handing the documents to his assistant. The reason, he asked. She paused, as if she never expected him to ask only that one question. I've fallen in love with someone else, she said. Her voice not heavy, but incredibly firm. All it took was 1 month. Just 1 month, he closed the document box and placed it in the signature tray beside him, finally raising his eyes to hers. Understood, the engagement is cancelled. Tell your father and my father yourself. The air suddenly became still. A crack appeared in her perfect facade. Perhaps she had prepared a long speech. Perhaps she thought he would ask who the man was or how long it had been going on. Ask if she'd considered their family's businesses. She might have even braced herself for him to fly into a rage, but he didn't. He even stood up and opened the door for her. Anything else? He asked. She stared at him for several seconds. In her eyes was reluctance and maybe something else. Confusion. Ren Yang, do you really not care at all? He just looked at her. An engagement is a matter between 2 people. Since you've made your decision, I respect it. Her breathing immediately picked up. Did you actually stop liking me a long time ago? She asked, her voice laced with bitterness. He gave no answer. Words like or dislike meant nothing in families like theirs. The year they got engaged, she was 20 and he was 22. Their engagement banquet was a massive 50-table affair. The financial news outlets called it an alliance between titans. Everyone assumed they would get married. Even he had accepted this future as a simple fact. She had been spoiled her entire life. As the only daughter of the Zhao family's leader, she always got what she wanted. She was used to being the center of everyone's universe, always standing in the spotlight, with others calculating every risk on her behalf. But he was different. After taking over his company at 24, he had to calculate every single cent of capital himself. He had to negotiate every single contract personally. The Ren family gave him the title, but they didn't make his decisions for him. So when she said she loved someone else, his first reaction wasn't anger. It was assessment, assessing the impact, the risks, and the cost. She stood at the door completely still. His name is Gyu Yeguang, she suddenly said. He simply nodded, her expression soured. Aren't you going to ask what he's like? Since he's the man you chose, you must already be very clear on that. When he said this, his tone was as calm as ever. She suddenly let out a cold, sharp laugh. You're always like this, so rational it makes me sick. Thank you, she stared at him, desperately searching for any crack in his perfect composure. Unfortunately, there was none. Since he was a child, he'd learned that emotions were the most useless currency. Especially at the negotiation table, she turned and stormed out. The sound of her heels was much heavier than when she'd first arrived. The moment the door shut, he stood still for a few seconds before sinking back into his chair. The glass wall across from him reflected his face, so calm it almost seemed like a stranger's. His assistant, Zhao Chen, knocked and entered, asking carefully, President Ren, what about Miss Zhao? Get the legal team. Prepare a statement canceling our engagement. Make sure the wording is purely objective. Yes, sir. He paused for a second, then asked, and our partnership deals? Ren Yang looked at the documents on his desk. The Zhao Group's 3 main projects were funded entirely by his Ren Group. If the engagement ended, the partnership would naturally need to be reevaluated. Leave them be for now. Understood. After his assistant left, the office fell silent again. His phone buzzed. A message from Zhao Liangxing. Are you really that relieved? He glanced at it and put the phone down, not replying. At 8 p.m. He was still in the conference room, going over new projects with his investment team. After the meeting, a social media notification from her popped up on his phone. In the photo, she was leaning on some man's chest. He wore a dark suit with sharp eyebrows and an arrogant smirk. Ren Yang had met him once at a business dinner. At the time, the guy was just some flashy, new money upstart. The company he ran wasn't big, but he was a smooth talker, always good at grabbing opportunities. The caption was brutally simple. Finally, we don't have to hide anymore. The comment section exploded with congratulations from some, while others simply asked about him. He tapped the photo, zooming in. She was smiling sweetly, far sweeter than he'd ever seen at any event with him. He hit the like button and closed the app. Just then, his assistant walked in with documents and saw his screen. The man's expression shifted. President Ren. Ren flipped through 2 pages, signed his name, then said, From now on, there's no need to report Miss Zhao's personal updates to me. Yes, sir. The office lights shut off one by one as night fell outside the huge windows. He leaned back in his chair and shut his eyes. It wasn't that he hadn't considered she might leave. He just never expected it to be like this. But since she had chosen her path, he had to choose his as well. The end of a romance involves 2 people, but a partnership involves 2 entire companies. He refused to gamble his group's future on a failed relationship. Nor would he change his own pace because of her choices. He picked up his phone and sent a text to his father. Engagement canceled. We'll discuss details tomorrow. The reply was instant and 1 word long. Acknowledged. No blame, no emotion. That was the Ren family way. Early the next morning, financial chat groups were already buzzing about Zhao Liangxing and Gyu Yeguang. Public opinion was a whirlwind. Some guessed the relationship between the Ren and Zhao families had shattered. Others thought their business ties would fluctuate. He closed the chat window and drove to the office. The sunlight outside the car was blindingly bright. A sudden thought hit him. From the day of their engagement, everyone assumed they would make it to the end. She was simply the first one to get off the train, and that was fine. At least before a marriage, he didn't have to deal with more complex family ties or divide any assets. Everything was still completely under his control. When the elevator doors opened, he was back to being calm and clear-headed. His mind was already in work mode. His secretary handed him the schedule. He glanced at it, schedule a board meeting for 3 p.m. The man was stunned. So soon, sir? Yes, some things can't be delayed. Since she made her relationship public, he had to make his stance public as well. He walked into his office and sat down. The desk was tidy, every document perfectly categorized. The glass wall reflected the entire city back at him. He looked at the mirror-like buildings. A city doesn't change its direction just because someone leaves. Capital works the same way. Romance can die. But partnerships must be recalculated from scratch. His phone buzzed. It was Zhao Liangxing. What exactly was that like for? He stared at the text for a few seconds, then replied with just 2 words. Your happiness. He hit send. Then he put the phone on silent. The meeting documents were already waiting. He opened the first page. From this moment on, he wasn't her fiancé anymore. He was the head of the Ren Group. She was just the heiress of a partner company. Whether she loved someone else, whether it was worth it or not, was her choice. He had his own road to walk. 3 days later, the news hit him mid-meeting. She hadn't told him herself. No, he heard it when the legal team started their report. During the meeting, a corporate alteration record was casually mentioned. The news dropped. The Zhao family completed a marriage registration today. Yeguang is now their primary affiliate. His hand, turning a page, paused. Just for a second, noted, he said, continue the meeting. It was 10:30. His phone began to ring. The screen displayed Uncle Zhao. He answered it. The other end was silent before a man's voice finally spoke. Ren Yang, it's Uncle, I'm sorry. The voice was deep and hoarse. Ren Yang stood up and walked over to the window. It was her decision, the uncle explained, far too impulsive. His anger was barely suppressed. She went straight to register the marriage, without even discussing it with her family. Ren Yang gave no reply. The uncle pressed on, asking about the partnership between their families. It won't be affected, will it? So that was the real question. Business is business, an engagement is an engagement. Ren Yang's voice was ice cold. However, I will have to reevaluate the projects. The other end went dead silent for 2 seconds. What do you mean? He asked. The capital needs to be restructured. Ren Yang, don't be impulsive. Ren Yang's response was chilling. I don't act impulsively. He hung up. Returning to the table, he called in the head of his investment department. Pull everything. All the files on our 3 core investments with the Zhao family. The director looked stunned. President Ren, why such a sudden audit? Ren Yang's answer was simple. For tonight's board meeting. The atmosphere in the conference room changed instantly. Li Zia, the investment director, had followed him for years. He knew exactly when his boss was about to make a serious move. He asked quietly, is this because of Miss Zhao? It's for the efficiency of our capital. Ren Yang offered no further explanation. At 3 p.m., the board meeting started on time. More than a dozen shareholders were present. The former chairman of the Ren family, Ren Yang's own father, sat near the head seat. He didn't speak, he only watched his son. Ren Yang began his presentation. Item 1, the Zhao family's commercial complex, capital tied up, 4 billion. The payback period has been extended by half a year. Item 2, a new energy partnership, capital tied up, 2.5 billion. Current profits are well below our expectations. Item 3, a real estate acquisition, risk rating, has increased. He paused. My proposal is to withdraw our core investments. A shareholder frowned. Withdrawing capital at this time will look like revenge. How the outside world interprets it is their business. Ren Yang shot back without hesitation. He looked directly at the shareholder who had just spoken. The return on our cash flow is our business. Li Zia added, if we withdraw, our cash flow will see a significant improvement. A veteran shareholder sighed, looking worried. Considering the long relationship between the Ren and Zhao families, isn't this a bit rushed? Ren Yang flipped to the presentation's final page. Capital never talks about feelings. With those words, the entire room fell silent. His father finally broke the silence. Let's vote. the resolution passed with a swift majority. He signed the official resolution document right then and there. The capital withdrawal process had now officially begun. After the meeting, his father called him back. "Do you know exactly what you are doing?" "I do." His father gave him a long look, then said nothing more. At 7 p.m., Zhao Liangxin called. He glanced at the screen, then answered. "Ren Yang, did you hold a board meeting today? Was withdrawing the capital your idea?" His voice was full of fury. It was a board decision. She took a deep breath, steeling herself. "Do you find this amusing?" He remained silent. The silence stretched on. "Are you doing this because of me?" she asked, the Zhao family's profit figures are in the reports. He told her she could go look at them. Her voice began to tremble. "You know full well I just got married. And the company is in a transition period, if you pull out your capital. Now how will outsiders look at me?" His answer was cold. "I am only responsible to the Ren Group." With that single sentence, the other end went completely silent. After a long while, she said softly, "You've changed." The call disconnected. Less than an hour later, Yu Yeguang reached out, suggesting a meeting at a club downtown. Our main character arrived on time. The man looked sharper in person than in his photos. His eyes carried a clear hint of provocation. "President Ren moves fast," he started. "My work efficiency has always been good." The man let out a cold laugh. "You're doing this because you're bitter, aren't you?" Ren Yang simply picked up his teacup. "You're overthinking it." With the Ren Group's capital withdrawn, the market would naturally doubt her judgment. The man's tone was full of thorns. "You're doing this to put her in a difficult position." Ren Yang looked at him, unfazed. "I withdrew the investment because the profits didn't meet our targets." "Are you really going to play the strictly business card?" "What else would it be?" he replied. The man leaned back in his chair. "People like you love to pretend you're so calm. On the outside, you act like everything is fine. But behind the scenes, you constantly play dirty tricks. People like us." Ren Yang looked at him calmly and put down his teacup. "If you feel there's problem with the capital, you can fill the gap yourself." His rival's expression changed. Just slightly. The Zhao family's 3 projects were massive. It was not something his current company could so easily take over. "I will fill it," he declared. "Then I wish you success." Ren Yang stood up, and so did the other man. "Don't you want to know why she chose me?" "It's not important." The man stared at him for a few seconds, then sneered. "People like you live too calculated a life." Ren Yang did not reply. He simply walked out of the club. The night wind was cold. The moment his car door closed, Li Zia called. "President Ren, the news of the withdrawal has reached the Zhao family. The banks have already started reevaluating their credit lines. Just follow the protocol." He leaned back in his seat and closed his eyes. Just for a moment, this wasn't revenge. It was merely ceasing support. The Zhao family had expanded way too quickly in recent years. Many of their projects relied on his group's capital just to stay afloat. Now that the support beam was gone, the pressure would naturally reveal itself. The next morning, the Zhao family stock showed clear signs of trouble. The investment department reported that the entire market had adopted a wait-and-see approach. "Keep monitoring." At noon, however, Uncle Zhao called again. "Ren Yang, you are forcing the Zhao family into a corner. I'm not targeting anyone. The moment you withdraw your capital, the banks get nervous. The manufacturing plants are hesitating. The risks were always there," Ren Yang replied. The man was silent for a long time. "Do you really have zero affection left for Liangxin?" Ren Yang paused for a second. "Affection cannot be equated with capital." He heard a heavy sigh from the other end. Today, she was questioned so relentlessly at the board meeting she couldn't. That is her responsibility. After hanging up, he returned to the conference room. The team was prepared and waiting. He pointed at the screen, setting the new investment direction. "Divert this capital to the Tech Park project." Li Zia looked at him, concerned. "But isn't the timeline too tight?" She nodded. "We'll draft the project proposal today." At 4 p.m. the news broke. Yu Yeguang publicly announced the Ren Group's withdrawal was just an emotional act. He saw the forwarded article but chose not to respond. Li Zia asked, "Do we need to issue a correction?" "No need, let the market guess, but guessing doesn't change the cash flow. Push the projects forward as planned." Inside the office, the phone rang nonstop as partners called to check on the situation. He gave a single, unified answer. The Ren Group is restructuring its investments. All based on commercial assessments. At 9 p.m., Liangxin appeared downstairs at his company with no appointment. Security called up to confirm, and he let her up. When she walked into his office, she was wearing a simple business suit. She was missing the joyous aura of a newlywed. "Are you satisfied now?" she began. Satisfied with what? All day, the Zhao family had been forced to explain their capital issues. "What you need to explain are the numbers." She glared at him. "You knew the banks would tighten our credit." "Bank risk assessments don't require his instructions." Her breathing grew heavier. "You just want to make things difficult for me, if you consider this difficult. It proves the projects themselves have problems." She stared, completely stunned. "Ren Yang, you were never like this before." "Before," he replied, "I wasn't the chairman." She opened her mouth, but no words came out. The air froze. She suddenly lowered her voice and asked, "Do you really not feel a thing that I got married?" As the words fell, her face went deathly pale. A few seconds later, she turned and left. This time, no 18-centimeter heels on her feet. Her footsteps were so light they were almost silent. The door clicked shut. He looked down at the withdrawal documents on his desk. The process was already halfway done. The funds were steadily returning. Outside his window, the city was brilliantly lit. Over at the Zhao family headquarters, the lights were on as well. Only this time, he was no longer the one standing behind them. By day 3 of the withdrawal, more than half of the funds had returned. The CFO put a report on his desk. "President Ren, our cash flow has improved significantly. There's no pressure to advance the new projects." He glanced at the numbers and gave a simple nod. Updates from their side arrived at the same time. Banks were auditing the Zhao family's credit limits. Multiple partners had postponed signing contracts. This wasn't outright betrayal, but observation. An observation itself is a shift in the wind. At 10 a.m., Li Zia knocked and entered. At the Zhao family, 2 suppliers are demanding early payment. "What do the contract terms say?" he asked. "The payment window is 3 months, then let them follow the contract." He nodded and left. Ren Yang knew the pressure was just getting started. The Zhao family had expanded far too quickly. Commercial complexes, new energy sources, real estate acquisitions, all of them pushed forward at once. It looked incredible on paper, but their cash flow was always stretched as taut as a bowstring. In the past, with the Ren Group's capital supporting them, those risks were kept suppressed. Now that the prop was gone, the cracks began to show. That afternoon, his secretary announced Miss Zhao had arrived. Ren Yang put down his pen. He looked up just as the door opened. She wore flat shoes, her hair a bit messy. Her makeup wasn't nearly as perfect. That signature air of superiority had faded completely. She walked to his desk but remained standing. "We need to talk." His reply was simple, "Speak." She took a deep breath. "The banks are tightening our credit." "Did you know?" He responded coolly. "I heard suppliers want their money early." "That's an internal problem for your company." She looked straight at him, a suppressed fire burning deep in her eyes. "Does it have to be this way?" He simply closed his folder. "You made your choice, and so did I." Her fingers gripped the edge of his desk. "Do you know how difficult?" He cut her off. "You are president of the Zhao Group. You're also Gu Yeguang's wife." She seemed to choke on his words. "Don't speak so coldly." Titles and identities are inherently cold. She stared at him for a few seconds, then suddenly sat down. "Ren Yang, our families have worked together for so many years. You pull your capital and just walk away. What will everyone think of this?" His reply was brutal. "Public opinion won't fix your cash flow." Her breath hitched. He hadn't raised his voice, nor was he angry. he was simply stating facts. She was quiet for a moment, her tone softening. We can adjust the terms for the Ren Group. A higher profit margin. The project's risks haven't decreased. We can add more collateral. You are mortgaging assets, not the future. Finally, she had nothing left to say. He could see the pure anxiety in her eyes. A woman like her, who had never truly stumbled in her entire life, was facing a total meltdown for the first time. "Where is Gu Yeguang?" he asked. Her face went blank. "He's out negotiating to raise capital. How is that going?" She didn't answer, but the answer was written all over her face. He stood up, walking around the desk to the window. "What the Zhao family needs now is cash flow, not your emotions." She shot to her feet, her voice tight. "Are you hoping to see us fail?" He turned to look at her. "I'm not targeting you, but that is the result." "The result comes from the structure." She bit her lip. "You wouldn't have treated me this way before. Before, you weren't standing on the opposing side." At his words, her eyes instantly turned red. She quickly turned her face away. "You won't even give an inch of leeway. The board of directors has made its decision." "Then can't you push to reevaluate it?" He had no reason to. She was silent for a long time. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Ren Yang, are you really this heartless?" She just stood there, as if waiting for a denial. But he offered her only silence. The door closed softly. He simply sat back down and opened the next file. At 8 p.m., news from the Zhao family's board meeting reached him. Multiple shareholders had raised absolute hell during the meeting. The capital gap was getting wider. Project fund recoveries were delayed. Some demanded a reduction in the investment scale. Others proposed bringing in new strategic capital. Uncle Zhao reportedly slammed his hand on the table. "You are the one who ruined this marriage." The meeting ended without any consensus. After the report, Li Zia added quietly, "They're in total chaos." Ren Yang's command was simple: "Go watch the numbers." Early the next morning, a familiar face waited in his conference room. The man had no appointment. He'd applied through official commercial channels for this meeting. A conference room was prepared. When the visitor sat down, his tone was even colder this time. "President Ren, regarding the Zhao family. Don't you think you've gone too far?" Ren simply replied, "Adjusting investments is not going too far." After you pulled capital, the banks immediately followed. Banks look at financial statements, not your mood. Doing this makes things very difficult for Liang Xing. She already made her choice. The man countered, "You two are acting together. You're betting she can't hold on. I don't gamble." He stared at Ren Yang, seemingly searching for any flaw in his expression. "We can renegotiate the terms of cooperation." "What can you offer?" The man paused. "Future resource integration, specifically in the new energy sector. Do you have distribution channels or contracts?" He fell silent. Ren then pushed a financial analysis report right in front of him. "This is the Zhao family's current capital deficit." He glanced at it, his face darkening. "You investigate fast. It's public data." The man closed the file. "Ren Yang, aren't you being too rational? Being rational lets a man live a little longer." He laughed, a sound dripping with displeasure. "By doing this, you're only pushing the Zhao family into other capital markets." He stood. "Just you wait and see." Ren Yang didn't try to stop him. Not long after he left, Li Zia walked in. The internal shareholders of the Zhao family are demanding concrete solutions from management. They plan to look for capital from Gu Yeguang's company. "His scale isn't large enough. Let's see what terms they can get." At 3 p.m., Ren Yang got a call from Uncle Zhao, his voice laced with exhaustion. "Ren Yang, someone on the board suggested that I step down." "That is an internal resolution for your own board. They said it is because I couldn't control my daughter." Ren Yang offered no reply to that. The other end was silent for seconds. "Do you really not care about our past ties?" Ren's answer was simple. "What I care about is risk control." The man let out a bitter laugh. "You are even more ruthless than I was back in the day." "The market today is more ruthless than it was back in the day." He hung up. Ren Yang leaned back, looking out the window as the sun was fierce. Below, the stream of cars flowed on endlessly. For him, it was business as usual. At dusk, Zhao Liangxing appeared at his company again. This time she didn't come straight up, but waited in the lobby when he went downstairs. He saw her sitting on a sofa, clutching her phone tightly, looking exhausted. She looked up at him. "Can we talk one more time? The board is pressuring my father." That is the power of shareholders. Ren stated, "You know perfectly well where the root cause lies. The root cause is the capital structure." She stared at him, her voice cracking slightly. Gu Yeguang said that he could shoulder it for a while. "But the banks will not give us any time. That is a problem they need to solve for themselves." Her voice rose suddenly. "Can't you just give us a little leeway?" People in the lobby started to glance over. He lowered his voice. "Zhao Liangxing, this is a company, not your home." A few seconds passed. Her shoulders slumped. "I never thought that things would turn out like this. Choices always come with a price." She looked at him, confusion mixing with reluctance in her eyes. "If I hadn't, back then," he said, "saying these things now is meaningless." She closed her eyes, taking a deep, shaky breath. "Will you really not give me even a sliver of face?" "I already did." She looked up, confused. "When?" "On the day you opened your mouth to ask for a breakup." He then turned away. "I have a meeting." She didn't follow him. The glass door slowly closed, shutting her outside. At 10 p.m., the Zhao family board met once again. This time, the shareholders flat out demanded a change in management. Uncle Zhao erupted. He exploded with anger right there in the meeting. "This marriage, ruined by your hands." That quote reached his ears soon enough. He put his phone down, no reaction. In the office, there was only the sound of typing. Data was still updating. The situation was still in flux. He didn't intervene. Nor did he retreat. After the chaos at the Zhao family board meeting, the market's direction became painfully clear. Two banks recalibrated the Zhao family's credit limits. Quotas were slashed. The flow of money slowed to a crawl. A few partners, almost at the finish line on negotiations, stopped everything. Dead in their tracks, he ceased all contact with Zhao Liangxing. At the Ren Group, new projects moved forward smoothly. The bid for the tech park land was getting close. Capital was all in place. But he knew it wasn't over. Things would never end this quietly. Gu Yeguang wouldn't just wait to die. A man like that would never admit defeat, never admit to a mistake. Li Zia handed him a document. "President Ren, this is Gu Yeguang's financial history." He opened the file. A few years back, he used a calculated marriage to get inside a major corporation. The marriage lasted just 2 years. After the company's resources were integrated, he made a clean exit. Only then did he start his own company. It wasn't large, but his fundraising was incredibly aggressive. He constantly used his partners' reputations to inflate his own standing. "A very aggressive style." "Not aggressive," Li Zia commented. "It's leveraged." Right now, his leverage is the Zhao family. He said nothing. The Zhao family's brand and assets were a much bigger prize than any chip he had ever played with. And Zhao Liangxing was his key card. That evening, a business banquet was hosted by a city industry fund. Several top-tier enterprises were set to be there. At first, he planned to send the vice president instead, but then he changed his mind. Some things are just better said face to face. The banquet was on the top floor of a downtown hotel. Soft lights, the sound of clinking glasses. The moment he entered, he saw Gu Yeguang. A sharp suit, a circle of investors around him. He spoke with absolute confidence, his gestures bold and flamboyant. Zhao Liangxing stood right beside him, smiling when needed, but she lacked her usual confidence. When she saw our main character, her composure clearly slipped. Gu Yeguang followed her gaze, saw him, and the corner of his mouth twitched. A few minutes later, he made his way over. "President Ren, long time no see. We just met 2 days ago." He raised his glass. That wasn't an official setting. "Now we can finally talk." He stood right across from him. His voice dropped. "You've been making some big moves lately, just capital adjustments. The Zhao family is under a lot of pressure. The market is what it is. Gu Yeguang stared at him and suddenly asked, "Aren't you just intensely jealous?" Someone nearby glanced over. He just chuckled. "Jealous of what? She chose you." He swirled the wine in his glass. "Withdrawn, you've only just joined the game." The man's smile froze. "You think you pulled out completely clean?" His response was simple. "My books are clear." His opponent's eyes turned to ice. The Zhao family's issues didn't just appear overnight. His reply, "Then it's even more vital to make things clear." The man stared at him for a few moments, then whispered, "Just wait and see." "See what?" "To see who will completely dominate this chessboard. That is your task." He didn't linger, turning away to speak with another investor instead. He noticed Zhao Liangxing standing nearby, her expression a mix of emotions. She didn't approach. Before the banquet was over, he got a text from Li Zia. Two partners had suspended their deals with the Zhao family. He replied with a single word. Noted. By the next morning, the news was even more grim. Gu Yeguang's company's fundraising plan had completely stalled. A major party that had already committed to participating suddenly backed out. The reason was simple: the Zhao family's capital chain was under immense strain. Risks skyrocketed, triggering a massive domino effect. Li Zia reported the news calmly. They planned to use the Zhao family as a guarantee. Now that guarantee is shaky. The market's reaction is only natural. Yeguang is frantically negotiating for new funding on his end. He flipped through the document in his hand. Could he even succeed? The new terms would be draconian. That afternoon, a text came from Zhao Liangxing. "Do you have time to meet for a bit?" He didn't reply right away. 30 minutes later, she appeared downstairs. This time, she wasn't dressed up. She wore a simple white button-down shirt, her hair a little disheveled. She walked right in. Without a word of greeting. "You investigated him, didn't you?" It wasn't a question, but a statement. His answer: "Public data. You leaked his past to the investors, didn't you?" "I didn't have to." She looked right at him, eyes full of inner conflict. "They all know now. Anyway, investors always do their own background checks." She fell completely silent. His previous marriage was just a business deal. He replied, "I know, and you know it too," he added, "and now they know it." Her voice trembled slightly. "Did you see this coming from the very beginning?" He simply said, "I look at data, you look at people, but a person is always reflected in their data." She suddenly let out a bitter smile. "I used to think you were just too cold. Now I see you can calculate absolutely everything." His reply: "I can't calculate emotions." For a split second, they both paused. Then she turned her face away. "The pressure right now is immense." She looked back at him. "Are you really not worried one bit? What if we turn the tables?" His answer was cold. "That depends on your own abilities." She bit her lower lip. "Do you really have no feelings left?" His response: "I have no right to interfere." Her eyes darkened. "So you're just going to stand there and watch me get trapped by the market with absolutely no plans to help me out?" She stayed quiet for a long time. "Why did he want me to see you?" His reply: "To discuss a partnership." "What are the conditions for the Ren Group to invest capital again? What are you basing it on?" She lowered her voice. "We can offer a higher equity percentage. The risk remains the same." She countered. "We can restructure the projects. The capital deficit is already a reality." She looked up at him again. "You're just going to watch me get cornered by the market." He reminded her, "You chose this path." Her voice trembled. "Do you really not hate me?" His reply: "Hatred doesn't fix cash flow." A few seconds later, she asked, "If I hadn't left back then, would you have treated the Zhao family?" "No." Her face drained of color. She realized it was all because of him. Because he had changed the very structure of the game. She fell completely silent. That innate pride she always wore was crumbling away, piece by piece, as she walked to the window. She gazed outside. "He told me he could hold on." His reply: "Then let him hold on." She turned back, and for the very first time, pure hesitation clouded her eyes. "Ren Yang, did you ever think that he approached me because—" Her voice trailed off, unable to finish. "Are you only now considering that?" he asked. She lowered her head. The office went dead quiet. After a long pause, she spoke softly. He told me to come here to prove he's stronger. Strength isn't proven with words. She shot back. Then why didn't you intervene directly? His answer was simple. I already withdrew. She looked at him then, really looked. As if finally understanding the heavy weight of those two words, to withdraw. It meant no longer participating, no longer shouldering the burden. She stood there, frozen. She remained rooted to the spot, completely silent. Then she spoke. His company's capital chain started tightening today too. He just shrugged. That's normal. Aren't you surprised? She asked. Structure dictates the outcome, he said. A bitter smile touched her lips. You figured this out ages ago. His reply was cold. I only look at financial reports. She said nothing more. At the door, she paused. He told me to come and persuade you. He looked at her. So, what do you think now? After a long silence, she said, I don't know. This was the first time he'd ever heard her say those words. Then the door clicked shut. He turned his attention to the documents on his desk, the timeline, Yu Yeguang's fundraising. The plans were delayed. Partners were now just observing. The market never plays favorites. There's no room for sentiment in this world. He didn't intervene, and he didn't warn her. Because with some gambles, once you make the wrong bet, you must face the consequences alone. When Yu Yeguang's fundraising was delayed for a third time, the writing was on the wall. The market had officially made its stance clear, and it wasn't an outright refusal. It was a stalling tactic, a slow burn. The conditions just grew harsher and harsher. Valuations were repeatedly slashed. Inside the Zhao family, the internal atmosphere was cracking. The tension grew. Two streams of pressure were crashing down on them at the very same time. In the boardroom, the voices of doubt were getting louder. Lysia handed him the latest summary. The Zhao family's stock price continues to plummet. Several minor shareholders are selling. He asked, and who is accumulating the shares? Mostly small-time investors, no clear institutional players. His command was simple, keep monitoring. At 4 p.m, his secretary knocked. Miss Zhao is outside. She says she has an appointment. He looked up just as the door opened. For a second, he almost didn't recognize her. She wore a simple black outfit, no jewelry, her hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her face was even paler than the last time he saw her, that natural, high-and-mighty pride. It seemed to have been stripped away entirely. She walked straight up to his desk. No greeting, just we can renegotiate, a direct approach. Negotiate what? He asked calmly. She sat down, her hands clasped tightly. The Zhao family's commercial complex project. You can re-enter, we'll offer you better terms. His only question was, how much equity? She quoted a number. It was definitely higher than before. And what's the capital deficit? She paused. Short-term is 1.5 billion. Long-term is still being calculated. He leaned back in his chair. The risks haven't disappeared, he stated plainly. We can invest in phases, collateral, core assets, liquidity. He let the terms hang in the air. He didn't need to press further. Feelings could be set aside. The project could still continue. At this, she clearly tensed up. Whose wife are you right now? The air instantly froze. Her fingers gripped tightly. I knew you would ask that. It is a fact. She spoke softly. Marriage isn't just a commercial contract. Then he countered. In what capacity have you come to me? She had no answer. He stood and went to the cabinet. He pulled out a document, then brought it back to her. This is the Ren Group's upcoming partnership list. She opened the first page. The Zhao family name was missing. It wasn't there. The second page, still nothing. She flipped frantically to the last page. Her hands were trembling slightly. You had this arranged a long time ago. Capital cannot sit idle. She looked up, her voice catching. You won't even give us a chance. There is no logical reason to. She tried again. I can step down from the board of directors. That's an internal matter for your people. She stared at him, her eyes turning red. We grew up together, she pleaded. That is in the past. Are you truly this ruthless? I don't make executive decisions based on emotions. She suddenly let out a faint, bitter smile. You speak without a single shred of warmth right now. His reply, warmth doesn't fix. Financial statements, she closed the file. What if I divorce? The question was unexpected. He looked at her, his face a complete mask. That is your choice, she pushed, if I cut ties. With him, will you reconsider? But his answer was cold. Project risks don't vanish with a divorce. And just like that, she finally understood. His refusal wasn't a matter of simple conditions. It was because the entire structure of their deal had fundamentally changed. She stood up, pacing the office. Yu Yeguang said you just want to see us bow our heads. He said sooner or later, you would relent. He was the one who told me to come. To come here and test the waters. She didn't deny it, staying silent for a few seconds. Then she spoke softly. He's under immense pressure right now. And so am I. Her voice, for the first time, held a note of true helplessness. In the board meeting, someone has already proposed bringing in external capital. The terms are terrible. Then evaluate them, he replied flatly. If we do that, our shares will be heavily diluted. That is reality. She walked right up to him. Ren Yang, I can admit I misjudged at the start. He didn't reply. She continued. I thought he could bring in new resources, new growth. But now I can't see through him at all. She lowered her head as if to hide her face. I didn't expect you to withdraw from the deal so cleanly. His response was simple. It was a necessary move. She suddenly looked up. Have you ever regretted it, even a little? Her confidence, once the talk of the town, began to crack right before his eyes. In that single moment, it just completely collapsed. She slumped back into the chair. Her voice faded. This is the first time I have ever felt like such a complete failure. Failure is a result, not a label, she whispered. You wouldn't have spoken to me like this before. The only sound left in the office was the low hum of the air conditioner. A few minutes later, she stood up. Let me ask one more time, if the Zhao family entirely exits the management board and hands control over to professional managers, will you reconsider investing? He gave a non-committal reply. I would have to see the proposal. She nodded, a spark of hope returning. I'll draft it, he warned her. There isn't much time. She walked to the door, then stopped. Yu Yeguang, today at the board meeting. He pushed part of the executive blame onto me, because my name was on the documents. If you signed it, you have to bear it. He closed his eyes, so he was already shifting blame. He wasn't surprised at all. Now, have you seen him clearly, as the door finally closed? Her silhouette looked incredibly lonely, and that evening, the Zhao family's nightmare began. The stock dropped, again, when the investment team reported to him. Their tone was tense. They asked cautiously if there were any intentions of a hostile takeover. His reply was cold, no comment. He then turned to face the floor-to-ceiling windows. Lights from the opposite tower painted the glass, and his mind drifted back. He remembered her, the first time in an evening gown, standing right by his side. She had spoken of the Zhao family's grand future, of the legacy she would build. Such ambition, she always had it, but ambition without judgment is nothing. His phone buzzed, a text from her. I'll redo the proposal. He didn't answer. On his desk, the list of partnerships stayed open, every single cent of his capital. Already had a destination. This wasn't emotion, it was a fundamental shift. A shift in position. She thought she'd only lost an engagement. In reality, she had just lost her entire foundation, 3 days after her empty promise. The market delivered its own brutal answer. The debt situation finally exploded. Every company under Yu Yeguang's name was publicly exposed, drowning in red ink. This wasn't some rumor, it was an official, damning financial report. Short-term loans had all matured, unpaid. Interest was now piling on top of interest. Their capital chain was at its breaking point. Lysia placed the document on his desk. Confirmed as true, he flipped through a few pages. Did the Zhao family guarantee it? They bear joint liability for a few projects. She signed off as vice president. She was vice president of the Zhao Group, a powerful position, but she was also Gu Yeguang's wife, 2 ropes binding them tightly to a sinking ship at 3 p.m. The Zhao Group announced a change. Zhao Liangxing was selling her personal holdings. She sold off a chunk of her stock at a painfully low price. The purpose was clear. She was trying to cover his losses. Li Zia's voice was flat. She is trying to save him. But could he be saved? Very unlikely. At dusk, 2 bank representatives arrived. They met him in the reception room, getting straight to the point. President Ren. Does the Ren Group intend to participate in the Zhao family's debt restructuring? There are no plans currently. Their faces fell, but if the Zhao family's capital chain breaks, it will damage confidence across the entire industry. So many companies are interconnected. The representative nodded, not daring to press him any further. After seeing the bankers out, he returned to his office. The night wasn't over. His secretary knocked again. Miss Zhao is downstairs. He was silent for a second. Let her up. When the door opened, he almost didn't recognize the woman who walked in. Her eyes were raw and red. She entered, closing the door gently. You saw, didn't you? I saw, he replied. She stood frozen before his desk, refusing to take a seat. The debt, it's worse than I ever imagined. The financial reports are public. The banks have come knocking. His response was ice cold, standard procedure. A bitter laugh escaped her lips. You knew it would come to this all along, didn't you? He looked at her, his expression unreadable. Why didn't you? Did you ever think to warn me? I did, he said. On the day you asked to break our engagement, the temperature dropped. The air turned to ice. She finally collapsed into the chair, burying her face in her hands. A moment later, she looked up, her voice completely hoarse. He is not you. Did you ever consider that when you chose him? Her fingers dug into the armrests. I thought he dared to charge forward. Ren's reply was brutal. Charging forward doesn't mean you have the strength to carry the burden. She closed her eyes in defeat. Today at the board. At the meeting, they proposed dismissing her from the vice president role. The reason? Executive errors. Ren Yang just signed the documents, offering no comfort or pity. He didn't mock her either. If I withdraw from the board right now, will you step in? Her face was deathly pale. He asked, why? Because even if the Zhao family collapses, the market will still assign a price. And just like that, her tears fell. It wasn't hysterical sobbing, just silent streams of tears. He didn't offer anything. Not even a tissue. This wasn't about being cold-blooded. It was about clear boundaries. He understood them well. She wiped her tears, her voice shaking. Today at the meeting, Gu Yaguang said I was the one who insisted on expansion. Did you insist? No, but I signed. She suddenly sprang to her feet. So you think I deserve this? He isn't one to pass judgment. She let out a bitter laugh. I used to think I controlled everything. Now, even my marriage is falling apart. You know what he said, it's just temporary pressure, but debt isn't temporary. It doesn't listen to comforting words. Yesterday, we had a massive fight in public. The media got pictures, they got pictures. He didn't probe for any more details. He didn't need them. He's starting to shift the blame, she said quietly. He claimed I spearheaded the decisions. How did she respond? Silence is also an answer. She realized then she knew almost nothing about him, but it's not too late to see clearly. It is too late. His words hit her hard, as if she'd lost all support. My father's health is failing. The pressure from the board is massive. I still have to deal with his debts. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Ren Yang, I never thought I would lose. He doesn't use that word. This is a matter of judgment, not winning. A few minutes passed before she sat back down. If the Zhao family restructures, will you participate? His answer depended on the terms. Controlling interest. I want a controlling stake. It's the only way for me to mitigate the risk. He heard her breath hitch. If that happens, the Zhao family won't belong to the Zhao family anymore. Does it even belong to them now? She had nothing to say. The phone in her purse vibrated. She glanced down at the screen but didn't answer. He's looking for you, Ren Yang noted. She replied, he says the capital is still negotiable. Still negotiable? Who is negotiating for him? He's looking for new capital. At a very low valuation, of course. That was the price to be paid, if I hadn't left then. Would you have helped me shoulder all of this? Back then, none of this even existed. His words were blunt, the light in her eyes faded. I always thought you were too cold, but… You saw through everything. She stood up. I didn't come here today to beg you. Then what for? I wanted to hear the truth. Does the Zhao family still have a chance? No, she flinched. The only way forward is to accept reality. And reality means restructuring, downsizing, and bringing in new capital, including from the Ren Group. If the terms are right, he said, then I will go convince the board. She had to convince hers to accept share dilution. It was better than complete collapse. As she said this, her tone was no longer heavy. The impulsive sharpness was gone. In its place was a cold clarity. She walked to the door, then stopped. Today, Gu. Yeguang asked for a divorce. Ren Yang looked at her. What do you think? She paused. For just a few seconds. I'll think carefully before I make a decision. The office returned to silence. His assistant, Li Zia, walked in. The Zhao family's board just announced a preliminary restructuring plan, specific project cuts, and external investment. Capital induction talks are ongoing. The equity ratio is under negotiation. He continued monitoring. Night fell. The opposite building's lights still blazed. He sat in his chair, completely devoid of any superfluous emotion. She went from being impulsive to regretful, from confused to independent, but her path was already set. 3 days after the Zhao family announced their restructuring, a rare, formal document was delivered right to the Ren Group. This wasn't a text from Zhao Liangxing, but an official invitation. An offer to collaborate from the Zhao family's entire board of directors. The wording was measured, the content painfully direct. They hoped the Ren Group would participate in the restructuring as a strategic investor. All terms were negotiable. He placed it on his desk, not responding immediately. Li Zia stood right beside him. They used official channels this time. Who filed it? The Zhao family chairman signed it himself. The meeting was set for 2 p.m. It was at the Zhao Group headquarters. He didn't bring many people. Just the legal director and the CFO. The conference room felt much colder than his previous visits. Several Zhao family elders sat near the main seats. Their faces were visibly exhausted. Several shareholders wore grim expressions. Zhao Liangxing sat off to the side. She was no longer the center. Her seat clearly showed her vice president title was in name only. He sat down, spreading his documents. The Zhao family head spoke first, Ren Yang. This time it is cooperation at the corporate level. He understood completely. The Zhao family is willing to open up equity and bring the Ren Group in. He quoted a number. It wasn't nearly enough to form a controlling interest. He glanced at his CFO, who shook his head. This ratio cannot cover the risk. The room went silent for a few seconds. A shareholder spoke up. President Ren, what are your conditions? Controlling interest. Those 2 words made the atmosphere in the room even more tense. The Zhao family head tapped his fingers. Controlling interest means the Zhao family loses all its initiative. As if they had any initiative left, a few shareholders exchanged glances. The CFO projected a risk assessment on the screen. If the Ren Group does not join the Zhao Group, your cash flow will hit the warning threshold within the next 3 months. The data was clear, brutally emotionless. A veteran shareholder asked quietly, "Can we raise funds from other sources?" He remained silent. His CFO answered for him. Other capital sources offer far harsher conditions. The head of the Zhao family fell silent for a long time. Ren Yang, do you really want to push it this far? This is a commercial negotiation. He looked at him with complex eyes. You and Liangxing grew up together. What we discuss now is the company. He closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. Give us time. He agreed. The meeting was adjourned. He stood by the window in the corridor. A few minutes later, Zhao Liangxing walked out. No makeup, just a calm expression. Do you really want a controlling interest? That is the prerequisite. Then the Zhao family won't be the Zhao family anymore. His answer was cold. It already ceased to be the Zhao family's company a while ago. she stared. You have changed so completely. Just different positions, the board will agree. There's no other way. She said this without a single hint of emotion. That sharp arrogance from the past had been ground completely flat. A few minutes later, they returned to the conference room where the head of the Zhao family spoke. We agree to the controlling interest proposal. The other shareholders simply nodded. No one dared to object. With that, the terms were finalized in record time. The Ren Group injected capital, securing over half the company's shares. The Zhao family kept a few seats, but they no longer held any real decision-making power. On the day of the signing, the room was dead silent. He signed the papers from the head seat. The head of the Zhao family signed right beside him. Zhao Liangxing stood off to the side, with no right to even speak. She just stared at the finalized documents, her face completely expressionless. The signing was over. He stood. The subsequent integration will be led by the Ren Group's team. Understood, the head of the Zhao family replied, his voice heavy with defeat. The meeting ended, and the crowd slowly began to file out. Zhao Liangxing was the last one to remain. Did you ever regret it? She stared at him for a few seconds, as if searching for confirmation one final time. I understand. She said nothing more, then walked out into the glaring corridor lights. A text from Li Zia arrived. Gu Yeaguang filed for divorce. He paused, confirmed, the documents were filed. He put his phone away. A marriage they had flaunted just days ago had already reached this point. But it wasn't surprising. A clean break was necessary now. The marriage's risks had simply become a liability. That evening, the Ren Group held an internal integration meeting. He sat at the head of the table. All of the Zhao Group's projects are to be reevaluated, cut the loss-making sectors, keep only the core assets. The team frantically took notes. This time he was no longer standing behind the Zhao Group, he was standing in front of it. After the meeting, Li Zia asked, President Ren, do we need to discuss any arrangements with Miss Zhao? No special treatment would be needed. Night fell. He returned to his office. The glass wall reflected the city lights. The Zhao Group sign still hung on their building, but its very structure had been fundamentally changed. He asked for a divorce. He glanced at the message, not bothering to reply immediately. A few minutes later, she sent another one. It turned out to be so fast. He replied with a single, cold sentence. Read the terms carefully before signing. On the other end, there was a long silence. Thank you, he set the phone down. There was nothing left to say. She went from being the center of it all to a bystander. While he never once ceased to be the one holding all the control. This was never about feelings, it was the result of choices made. 1 year later, the Zhao Group signboard was still there, but the company itself was entirely different. The Ren Group had become the official controlling shareholder. The integration was complete. Their projects were streamlined down to 3 core, profitable sectors. All toxic assets had been purged, personnel structures were adjusted. The books were clean. He sat in the chairman's office, signing the final year-end audit report. The CFO stood beside him. This year, the Zhao Group achieved positive cash flow for the first time. The profit margins are low, but healthy. We will maintain this pace. The man left. His secretary walked in. Yu Ye Guang's bankruptcy and liquidation processes are complete. He didn't even stop writing. Personal assets are frozen, affiliated companies dissolved. In just 1 year, the so-called rising star had been reduced to complete silence. The process was quick. The capital has no mercy for losers. At 3 p.m., he got a call from Zhao Liangxing. Her name hadn't appeared on his phone in a very long time. Do you have time to meet? The usual place, she said. It was a cafe they used to visit often when they were younger. She was already there, seated by the window. No high heels, no fancy makeup, just a simple white shirt. Her hair fell to her shoulders. She looked up, offering a faint smile. Long time no see. He sat down. A waiter appeared. She ordered a black coffee. He motioned his order. She spoke first. I heard you were more decisive than I imagined. For him, it was just cutting his losses. I used to think marriage was a resource." She said this with a completely flat expression. "The Zhao Group is operating very well now. The board speaks highly of you." He replied that it was the team's effort. "You've become much calmer." He simply said the position demanded it. "I left the management board. I'm just a regular shareholder now." "It's nice," she smiled. "Aren't you curious about how my life has been this past year? If you want to know, you can ask." She looked down, tracing the rim of her cup. "When we first divorced, it was hard. Later, I realized our relationship had been fractured for a very long time. Did you ever hate me? Emotions don't solve problems." She fell silent. "I always used to think you were far too rational." "Do you still think so?" she asked. "Now I think I was just too impulsive. The cafe wasn't busy." Sunlight streamed through the window, falling on the table. "If I hadn't taken that step back then, what do you think would have happened to us?" She suddenly asked. "We will never know," he stated plainly. She chuckled. "You still won't entertain hypotheticals." To him, they are meaningless. "Over the past year, I figured one thing out." "What is it?" he asked. "No one is obligated to pay for someone else's foolish whims." She spoke very slowly. He didn't respond. "At first, I thought I could have both love and resources. In the end, I lost them both. I've learned how to read financial reports now. You taught me." He offered a faint smile. "I didn't teach you, your actions did." She took a sip of coffee. "I came today to apologize. That's not necessary, but I owed you an explanation." "It's all in the past," he replied. After a moment, she asked, "Are you happy now?" He thought for a second. His mind was perfectly clear. She looked at him, her eyes filled with complex emotions. "Are you really not bitter at all? That's good. Between us there are no arguments, no grudges, only the scars left by time. If the company needs my help, I will cooperate." She sighed. "You really don't leave any room for sentiment." For him, public and private matters are separate. Stepping out of the cafe, there was no sound of high heels. Her footsteps were much lighter now. He stood at the door and watched her get into a car. The car drove off. She never looked back. That evening, he returned to his office. Outside the massive windows was the familiar city view, but over the past year, that landscape had changed completely. The Zhao Group was now a subsidiary of the Ren Group. Yu Yeguang had left the stage. Zhao Liangxing had been pushed from the center to the sidelines. And he sat in his office, having lost nothing at all. A work message came in. He replied, then put his phone down. The night outside the window was deep. The glass reflected his face, showing not a single ripple of emotion, nor a single ounce of regret. In the beginning, she chose to leave. That was her freedom. He chose to withdraw his capital. That was his right. Every outcome was born from the choices made in that precise moment. No one has to bear the consequences for what someone else decides, and no one stands still forever. Waiting for another person to turn back, he switched off the office lights. The elevator doors slowly slid shut. In this game of chess, there is no winning or losing. There is only cold, hard clarity.